Good evening. My name is Pete Dixit. I'm the Executive Director of Facilities Management and Strategic Planning for Baltimore County Public Schools. I'm joined here by Mr. Paul Taylor, Director of Strategic Planning and Metal Plate, Director of Construction and Improvement of Baltimore County Public Schools. I just wanted to welcome you to the second Community Engagement Forum to support the Northeast Area High School Study. For those of you who are new to this conversation, just a little bit of background. Last year, a consultant conducted a comprehensive study of BCPS schools called My iPass, which is a multi-year improvement program for all the schools. This study provided recommendations to improve the physical condition, space utilization, and educational adequacy of all the schools in Baltimore County. The next step in this process is to further taking a deep dive and look at the specific options proposed under the My iPass study. A consultant, Samaha Incorporated, has been selected as per our board policy in Rule 3250, and all of the information that we had, studying and any other information that had been done in the past, we have shared with the consultant. At the first meeting, those of you who did not attend, just wanted to share with you, Samaha used this information combined with their experience to create a list of potential site options to improve the facility capacity, condition, and adequacy. Tonight, Samaha is going to explore in a little more detail potential solutions at each site. We want this process to be totally transparent, consistent with the desire of superintendent, county executive, and the school board. So we want to share with you that community participation is vital to maintain this process. We acknowledge the community feedback we received in the last meeting, and today the consultant's ongoing analysis has considered your comments and concerns, and you will see some of it included in their presentation tonight. So in the interest of time, please type any questions or feedback during the presentation into the chat. When the presentation is complete, there will be a chance for Samaha and BCPS to answer questions from the chat box. And those questions that we could not answer today, we'll share some of the responses in our website. With that, I request Samaha Incorporated to start their presentation. Thank you very much for your participation.
Thank you everyone for taking the time to join us today. My name is Amy McCarty with Samaha Associates. I am an architect. Here with me tonight is our civil engineer, Nick Wilson with MK Consulting. We appreciate this opportunity to explore these projects here at Baltimore County Schools. So the purpose of why we're here, Pete talked a little bit about the My iPass. So we are really taking a deeper dive into the My iPass recommendations and specifically looking at the high schools in the Northeast region. So we will be looking to evaluate options for improving facility condition and providing capacity relief to the high schools in the Northeast area. This will include looking at Kenwood, Loch Raven, Overlea, Parkville, and Perry Hall. So with the My iPass, there were really two recommendations for the high schools in the Northeast planning region. The first is looking at some of the critical additions in Group 2. One of those was addition renovation at Loch Raven High School to relieve capacity at Parkville. And then the second option is looking in Group 3, the recommendation for adding capacity in the Northeast region, either through additions and renovations or looking at building a new school. So we have 5 options that we're going to look at tonight. This is really kind of the beginning stages of looking at these options. So we, again, appreciate any feedback on the options tonight, and if there are any additional options you think we should explore and look at. So the first option is a new school on a new site at Hiss Avenue. The second option would be a new school on a new site at Belmont Park. Option 3, we'll be looking at 3 additions for Perry Hall, Overlea, and Kenwood. Option 4 is looking at additions to 2 high schools, Loch Raven and Overlea. And option 5, we are looking at a replacement school on the Loch Raven site. So this map that's shown now just kind of orients you to the Northeast Planning Region of Baltimore County. What is shown on the map in orange is the Northeast region. The blue areas are the existing high schools, and the red dots show the proposed sites. So again, going through the options, you can see Hiss Avenue is kind of centrally located between Parkville and Overlea. Option 2, Belmont Park is to the northeast of Parkville High School. Option 3 are the additions at 3 of the existing high schools, Perry Hall, Overlea, and Kenwood. And option 4 would be additions at Loch Raven and Overlea. And then the 5th option of a replacement school at Loch Raven High School. So we're going to dive into each option, kind of get a little more in depth. Looking at the first site, Hiss Avenue, you can see on the screen it's located very close to the intersection of Route 1 and 695. So zooming into this existing site, the yellow lines on that map are the contours of the site. So you can see it's a very steeply sloped site and heavily wooded. There is a small existing maintenance facility on the site currently to the east, and some community gardens on the north side of the property. The areas highlighted in red are a stream buffer on the site. So that's pretty much area within that site that we really can't develop. So this option is really looking at providing a new 1,000 state-rated capacity school. We are looking to make a compact footprint, 3-story school that would allow us to maximize the site amenities that we can fit. We are showing space for parking, buses. We are showing site amenities for athletics, including a stadium, baseball field, softball field, tennis and basketball courts, as well as a large multi-purpose field. The existing slope of the site kind of drains to the east and south portion of the site. The location of the Hiss Avenue is in a fairly developed neighborhood, so we wouldn't have any trouble getting utilities to the site. And just one of the things to mention about these options as we go through them, these are just kind of a first look at what we could fit on the site. So if one of the options was selected, there would be further development for the options as well. So this is just kind of a first look at what all we can fit on these sites. Some of the pros and cons of this particular site, there is space for future expansion. Trying to keep a compact footprint on the site to maximize the site space. The current capacity of the school is proposed at 1,000 students. The current projections have about a 638 student deficit within the Northeast region. So this would actually allow for some future growth from the start. The new construction, cost-wise, allows for greater efficiency of the design and longevity of the facility. But on the backside of that, building a smaller capacity school has greater operation costs throughout the life of the school. So moving on to option 2. The Belmont Park site, similar to option 1, we would be providing a new school on a new site. It's located to the north of 695 and Route 1. Zooming in on the site, So this is the existing Belmont Park. There are several ball fields on the site, as well as some pavilions and parking. And it is currently, the site is accessed off of Walther Boulevard. There is an existing power line easement to the east of this site. And again, the areas shaded in red are the stream buffers. So on this site, it really kind of splits the site in two. So to access the southern portion of the site, we would need a bridge that goes across the stream. So again, looking at 1,000 student capacity school, approximately 178,000 square feet, looking at, again, a compact 3-story building. We would provide parking for both staff and students, drop off for students for cars and buses. We would have a baseball field, stadium, and tennis courts. Also, the areas located, the green areas labeled SWM are areas for stormwater management. So those would be areas that we would be looking at controlling the runoff of the site. So this site, because it is a smaller site than the Hiss Avenue, we would not be able to get all of the site amenities, play fields on the site. We would not be able to fit a softball field or the larger multi-purpose field that we were showing at Hiss Avenue. So again, it's a developed area, so utilities would not be a problem on the site. Again, the site drains naturally to the east and the south. Similar issues with the cost. You have great efficiency of the design and longevity of the construction, capital funds with the new construction, but there are some trade-offs with that. With this building a smaller school, you have greater operational costs throughout the life of the building. In both option 1 and 2, there's also, because they're both steeply sloped, we would definitely have to look at ways to make them ADA accessible. There would be retaining walls and terraced areas probably on both sites. Moving on to option 3, at the first meeting there was a comment about preferring new schools over additions. So this is an addition option, but we wanted to still show it as an option because there are some benefits to providing additions over new construction. So we wanted to present that to you as well. So looking at this, zooming into Perry Hall would be the first site. Perry Hall is one of the larger schools in the Northeast region. So we are looking at adding 242 seats to Perry Hall with the new addition. So we have, with these additions, we are also looking at adding the 240 seats, which would essentially be new classrooms to Perry Hall. But with that, we are also looking at the existing core spaces and determining if the existing core spaces can support that added capacity. So at Perry Hall, we would actually be increasing the size of the gymnasium and some of the support gym spaces, as well as increasing the learning commons or library and the cafeteria within the addition. Moving on to Overlea, you can see the location in the county between 95 and Route 1 and south of 695. This site is a rather large site, but only half of it is really used for the school, and it's again a fairly steep slope. So the top classroom, bar, and auditorium are at the highest level, and then it drops down to the cafeteria and gym, and then drops further down in grade to the stadium. So again, looking at where we could add additions and expansion of some of the core spaces. For this project, we would be looking at adding a classroom, a 3-story classroom addition to the end of their existing 3-story classroom wing, as well as adding, expanding the gymnasium and the auditorium and the learning commons spaces to accommodate that increased 321 seats. And then the last school in this option is Kenwood High School. It's one of the southernmost schools in this region. So looking at the existing school, this school was originally built in the 1950s. It's had several renovations over the years. Looking at this, we're only adding 75 seats to Kenwood. Again, we would be looking at the core spaces, and the existing media center at Kenwood would be hard to expand in its current location. So the thought here would be to take that existing learning commons and turning that into the 3 classrooms, and then adding an addition to support a new library that is appropriately sized for the additional seats, as well as adding additions to the existing gym and kitchen in their current locations. So some of the pros and cons of the addition. One of the major pros is that no additional land is required for these. We're building on existing schools, existing property owned by Baltimore County Public Schools. It also spreads out the additions. If we're building a new high school, all of the new seats are going in one location, whereas the addition spreads the new seats across 3 different schools and areas within the region. The boundary changes would also be less of an impact with adding additions, because the schools are just adding the capacity to the overcrowded schools. The funding, cost-wise, we would be, again, upgrading some of the existing core spaces to support the new capacity, but we would also need to look at updating some of the non-core spaces as well to accommodate the increased capacity and 21st century needs. So that would also be some additional funding that would be required for the addition schemes. So option 4 is another addition scheme, but here we're looking at just adding space to 2 schools instead of 3. So we're looking at Loch Raven and Overlea High School. Loch Raven High School is toward the northern end of the region, just north of 695. And it is one of the smaller schools in the area, only 1,049 students currently. So looking at the additions, we would be adding 319 students to Loch Raven. So again, in this school, the existing cafeteria and kitchen would be undersized for that additional capacity. So we would look at expanding those into some adjacent classrooms in the current school, and then putting those classrooms that we are displacing into the new addition. So the classroom addition would house both the new seats as well as some of the existing classrooms. And we would also be expanding the gym spaces in this school as well. We do know that there's some bad soils on this site in the location of where we are proposing this addition, so that would have to be taken into consideration in the cost and construction of this project. So Overlea High School, again, is located between 95 and Route 1 to the south of 695. Zooming in on the existing building, again, same as option 3. We are looking at adding a new classroom addition on the end of the existing classroom wing. So then again, it's very similar to option 3, adding 319 seats. We would be expanding the gym, the learning commons, and the auditorium. And pros and cons for option 4 are similar to option 3. Again, we wouldn't be required to acquisition of any additional land for this option. We are the two schools are kind of at opposite ends of the northeast region, which kind of helps spread the new seats out across the region. Again, the cost of the construction with only adding the 638 seats that are needed, the project should be eligible for state funding. In addition to some of the building improvements, we would also need to look at site improvements for both parking and stormwater management within the new proposed addition options. So the last option, we are also looking at the Loch Raven site. However, with this one, zooming in on the existing site, we are looking at building a new school directly adjacent to the existing building. And then once the new school is constructed, we would tear down the existing Loch Raven school. So the new school would house the existing 1,049 students that are currently at Loch Raven, as well as the additional 638 seats. So the total capacity of the school would be just under 1,700, with about 300,000 square foot school. Some of the advantages of doing this on the existing school site is we can keep some of the existing amenities, like the stadium and the baseball fields would be in their existing location, and they could be used by the new school and the existing school. By building the new school outside of the footprint of the existing school, and with the location of this site on a corner, we would be able to separate this construction traffic from the school traffic. So during construction, the contractor would be able to access the new school footprint area from Cromwell Bridge Road, and the students would be accessing the site from Cowpens Avenue to separate the construction and the student access. So, and then once the new school is built, we would tear down the existing school to provide space for parking and buses, as well as a large multi-purpose field. Again, just some of the pros and cons. The cost, really, this option has somewhat the greatest economy of scale for construction because you are replacing the existing Loch Raven High School. You are essentially solving a future issue of renovating that school down the road. So it kind of touches on filling two needs with one school. There are some unsuitable soils on the site, as we mentioned, with the addition options, so those would need to be looked at. Again, you would not require any additional land for acquisition. And again, we could reuse some of the existing playfields. Utilities on site are not an issue because they're already there for the existing school. So thank you for your time. If you have any questions or feedback, please let us know through the chat feature. We're looking for feedback on the options that were presented tonight, as well as any thoughts on what is in priorities for you as far as what thoughts is additions versus new schools, what site amenities are important for the schools, really looking at what is the best option for the students for the future of these schools. Thank you.
Thank you for that presentation. Good evening. My name is Paul Taylor. I'm the Director of Strategic Planning for Baltimore County Public Schools. We're now going to start the question and answer portion of our session this evening. Please use the chat feature on your screen, and also you can use our website to put in any comments or provide any feedback that you have.
Okay, it looks like Paul's ready, so he'll ask the question. Okay, you want me to? Okay, your mic is up. Okay.
We have a question. Is the Hiss Avenue location Double Rock Park, and do you plan on having an entrance off of Bel Air Road next to the shopping center?
So at this time, we are showing access to the site through the northern portion of the site off of Hiss Avenue. There are some challenges accessing the site off of Route 1, so we would need to further explore that as an option down the line.
We have another question. I'd like to know more about this Hiss Avenue location. Is it BCPS property already?
The Hiss Avenue property is a Baltimore County-owned property.
We have another question. So that means is currently Double Rock Park. I think they're asking if Hiss Avenue location is also the same as Double Rock Park.
No, Double Rock Park is to the west of the Hiss Avenue site.
The question is regards student safety and if the expansion project will offer more safety for students. Safety is one of the important considerations in any project that we do. So it definitely will be a consideration.
Stand by. 3.
We're concluding now our question and answers portion of this session. Please remember to visit the Northeast High School study page on the BCPS website. We have created this site to keep the communities updated on the progress of the study. This will allow you the opportunity to submit comments and feedback. Samaha, our consultant, will consider your input as they develop the recommendations, which will be presented to the board in a public session. This concludes our session for this evening. We thank you for your participation in this process.